Hi. So somebody left me a comment that is, I think, a really good question, and it's kind of a trick question. And it brings up, I think, the very heart of manifesting, the very heart of taking on a new state and existing in it long enough that the outer 3D world begins to conform in a way that seems like magic, but is really very logical, honestly. If you could see the ways that you're changing, if you could see the way that you're influencing your environment, if you could see the energy field and how your thoughts are influencing things that seem very far away, you would see exactly how it's all working. But it seems like magic. I guess that's kind of cool for now, but my guess is it'll be all readily apparent to us at some point here. Maybe not in my lifetime, but pretty soon, I'm guessing. So the question was, what does a rich person think like when they're shopping? Like, this question is funny because I think it's very easy to think of something that is foreign to you and to imagine that it's kind of like the same across the board for everybody. And of course, that's not the case. Just like whatever your current financial level is, there are legions of people at the exact same financial level as you are that are experiencing it differently. It's the same thing with people when they get more money. So what a rich person thinks like, or whatever their state is when they're shopping, you're going to have to imagine yourself as a rich person, and you're going to have to resist the temptation to take your sort of caricature of a rich person and put yourself into that caricature, rather than taking the self that you know now and exploring what that self is like in relation to money now and what you think you would be like if you had more. I mean, this is where the imaginal acts and stuff, the Neville Goddard imaginal stuff, I think comes in handy, because if you actually go into that state of being, but with a lot more money, and then you explore around in there, put yourself in different situations, imagine, different scenarios, and you try to actually think what you would be like, not what I think a lot of people default to thinking, oh, if I were rich, I would just buy whatever I want. And probably at some degree, or probably at some level of wealth, you would do that. I'm sure there's a level of wealth where 99.9% of the things that an average person would buy are things that, you would not even bat an eye at. Like, I would say for my personal self, I notice prices on things, and especially at this point, I've really gotten to the point where I've stopped just buying everything I want. If I had, it was for a while that if I had an impulse to buy something, I would just buy it. But then, I started running into, God, there's crap everywhere. I've got all this shit. It's always piled up all the time. I didn't use this. I'd look at something and say, man, that costs like $300 and I'm about to donate it. That happened probably like 50 times. I was like, this thing was very expensive, or it wasn't insignificantly expensive. And now I'm driving it to the Salvation Army, and it just started to annoy me. That type of thing started to annoy me, and I started to get a lot more discerning about clicking the buy now button on Amazon. Like, that's just a change that happened to me through experience. But so, it's not always like it will be this way at this point. I mean, everything in life is an evolution through experience. But if you're somebody who right now sort of frivolously buys things, and you start to get more money, for whatever reason, you'll probably still frivolously buy things until you change and decide not to anymore, if you ever do. So it's really a matter of, what do you think you would be like? Maybe the first thing that you can attach to is, I would buy even more stuff than I do now. For me, it was, I stopped worrying about paying rent. I stopped worrying about anything having to do with housing. Like, at this point, I don't worry at all about that type of thing. The exorbitant health insurance premiums that I pay for myself and everyone associated with my business, just because I'm nice, those annoy me on principle, not because they can't be afforded. And they are ridiculously expensive and nobody ever gets sick or uses them. So, there's stuff like that. It's not like I'm just like, oh, I've got plenty of money, so who cares if this thing annoys me on principle and I have to pay for it. That's what you're going to be like when you have more money. You know what I mean? When you get more money, you're still going to be you. The things that worry you now will probably still worry you to some degree until you get to a certain point. That's the other thing. Can we define rich person? There's you right now barely making it, if that's where you are. There's you right now at whatever, financial status you're at that you're unsatisfied with. You don't obviously have enough for whatever you think would bring you happiness or fulfillment or security or whatever. So those things that are lacking in your life right now would be more fulfilled. But this is one of those things where you have to think about it for yourself. How would you feel? What's the biggest financial worry in your life right now? And let's say that you found yourself at, also people are like, are you going to get a lump sum? Are you going to have a steady income that keeps you at this, what are you imagining here? How would you feel towards those things? When I go to the grocery store, I don't look at prices. I just put whatever I want in my cart. I check out half the time. I don't even look at what the total is because I know that it can't be so high that there is going to be an issue. You know what I mean? I maybe if I'm like buying olive oil or something, I'm like, how much is this? Oh my God, it's $40, but it's not like I won't buy it. But anyway, there's like nothing in the grocery store that I just don't waste my mental energy thinking too much about stuff like that. But when it comes to a car, if the car situation hadn't been so weird over the last few years, I might have started looking for a new car. But, right now I'm just like, I'm just going to keep the car I have because I would rather not overspend. I'd rather not spend more than I think is realistic on a car. Or I should say, in my mind, certain things cost a certain amount still, and I'm annoyed that they went up so much over the last 5 years. And so it's like, I'm sorry, I'm just not willing to spend 40 or 50 grand on a car. I'm just not. I could easily afford it. I could go take money out of the bank and pay for it right now. But no. I'm not paying that much for a car. Other people who love cars, maybe the first thing you would do is buy a $75,000 car that you really want. And maybe you would realize from that experience, for 75 grand, this really didn't give me the bang for my buck that I thought it would. Or maybe every single day you would get in your car and say, I love this car. I look at my car all the time and say, I love this car. So, what would you be like? What would you be like? Would you travel all the time? Is that one of the things you want to do? Would you look at first class accommodations and say, you know what, that'd be nice, but I don't really need that, and then not splurge on it? Or would you just do everything up to the most extreme degree? Put yourself in that position and think about what you would be like. I feel like there's this insistence in the manifesting community that you do everything to the nth degree. And I don't know, I personally just don't do that. I mean, everywhere I fly first class because it's such a better experience for me to do that. And I stay in nice hotels when I go places, but I barely ever go anywhere. I barely ever travel. So for me, it's like this sort of large expense that occurs every time I go anywhere is palatable because it's so infrequent. If I were somebody who loved to travel and wanted to go all over the world and do everything, I mean, that could get really, really expensive really fast. And so I might cheap out a little bit on it. I don't know. But I'm also not somebody who has $30 million in the bank. I'm not somebody who has $100 million in the bank. Everything, all the wealth I've built has been incremental. I've had plenty of time to get used to the new wealth level before it went up more. And honestly, I kind of got to a place in about 2014 where I still pretty much am. I don't really worry about money when it's being spent. If there's something that needs money, I spend money on it. I do worry about the global state when it comes to the economy and other things that are going on. That does worry me. That's the source of any sort of financial worry that I have, because it's very easy to forget that you can sort of navigate your way through basically like an apocalypse happening around you. That's the power of manifestation. You can intend for something, and while everybody else around you is, imploding, you're doing really well. I've seen this happen for myself multiple times. I built my business during the GFC, and the economy is in a really weird state now in the US, and my business is growing really fast, which I was not expecting at all. In fact, I was rationally thinking that we were probably going to be experiencing decline this year more. Last year and the year before, we did the exact same amount of business within like a couple thousands of dollars, which is completely absurd. Like, for the number to be the same at the level it's at is just bizarre. Totally bizarre. I don't even know, if I had tried to make that happen, I couldn't. So that was really weird. But we made a little bit less money last year because I didn't raise all the prices on everything, even though there's been inflation and I'm paying more for it. So we made like exactly the same, whatever. We grossed the same amount of money, but we made a little bit less in profit last year. Not a bunch, not like a lot, but so I was thinking things are going to decline. And then earlier this year, I made videos about it. I had kind of like a snapping moment in early February where I saw this dude in Petco. It was a whole thing. I'm not going to rehash the whole thing, but for some reason, seeing this particular person at this particular time of day in this particular place, which was like the last thing in the world that should have happened, it was just like, I don't even think it was related. It was like the world slapping me in the face and telling me to wake up. And I did. I think I was on the verge of like a productivity output, just complete burnout breakdown. Like, I think I was a couple weeks away from I don't know what. I was on the verge though, because I took like 2 weeks off from most of what I was doing, and that 2 weeks off where I was not putting too much into everything increased all of my business and everything. And thanks to that little period of time, I realized I've been working way too hard at this. This is a lot easier than I've been thinking it was. And now everything's growing. So I don't know. That's the way shit happens. I don't know. If you pay attention, I don't know. If I had tried to interpret that situation with that moment in Petco some other way, I think I would have missed it. It was like, I don't know. It was like the universe screaming at me to wake up. And I did, thankfully, in time. And now everything's working out. So, I think that was sort of like the culmination of the misplacement of my focus and allowing myself to worry too much about the economy and kind of forgetting that it doesn't, like, circumstances don't matter, like Neville Goddard says. They don't. Especially if you're oblivious to them. That's the thing. Like, if you don't even pay any attention to what's going on, you can often, I think, skate right through it without even like knowing anything happened. That's why also I keep telling people, take your focus off of the shit that is bringing you. This is manifestation 101. If you keep focusing on the things that are causing you anxiety and are upsetting you, and I can't believe how many people are doing this. It's like, and they're doing it without admitting to themselves that they love the drama, that they're loving this anger and anxiety and everything else. I can't believe how many people are like paying attention to politics, first of all. Second of all, paying attention to the interpretations of others, because I'm sorry, 90% of the people that have an opinion don't have their own opinion. They listen to somebody else's analysis and decided to agree with it and then start having a bunch of feelings about it as if it were their own interpretation. This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I doubt it's going to lead anywhere good, but I'll tell you what, I'm clearly not going to be affected by it, and I'm clearly not going to experience the detriments of it. I've already decided that. I've already removed my attention from it, excuse me. And I just think this is insane. I think it's insane for anyone who watches videos on manifestation to then just completely, it's like you're not manifesting just in this one area where you want more money or whatever. You're manifesting all over the place. You're giving all this focus and attention to these ideas that you don't like, and you don't even realize that you're helping to bring them about by doing that. You're creating the very thing you don't want by putting your focus and attention and energy and emotion and all of that stuff into it. Everyone who is up in arms is causing the problem. So quit it. Okay, back to what does it feel like to go shopping as a rich person? Like I said, it's going to be up to you to figure out what you would be like as a rich person. There are rich people that still worry about every penny. There are rich people that spend frivolously and eventually find themselves without money anymore. There are rich people that spend frivolously and it works for them and they keep generating more and more money. Who are you going to be? I don't know. How do you see yourself ending up with this money? Do you have an idea? Like, are you imagining yourself in a career where you will make a lot of money in perpetuity as long as you're employed? Are you envisioning some sort of lump sum windfall? What does it look like for you? Is it a slow growth type of thing? I think all those things are going to influence what you do. I mean, I think the slower you grow wealth, the longer you have an opportunity to sort of grow and change along with it. That's different from, you know, I inherited $300,000 when somebody died and now I've got this money here and now I'm a rich person, at least compared to where I was. You know, what am I going to do with that money? How would I be, you know, if you're a broke person and you get a windfall, you're probably going to blow it all. I mean, this is just been documented over and over and over again, because you're still, you know, when you're still in the sort of broke person's mentality, you don't do the same things with your money as a person who is expecting more wealth, who is calm and peaceful, or who is at least, you know, thinking differently, thinking long-term, thinking investment or whatever. You're going to do different things. You're just, all these different mentalities produce different outer actions and choices. So you really have to put yourself in that scenario. I'm shopping for groceries and now I'm just me with, more than enough money to cover everything I want. What do I do? How do I still look at prices? Do I still have a budget? Do I still say I'm not spending more than $300 on groceries this month or this week or this week now, I guess, because I just don't want to spend that. I just, you know, morally, whatever, I have a moral problem with, you know, wasting that kind of money on food. How are you valuing money at that point? Does it become like money's worthless to you and you lose a couple $100 in the couch? That might happen without you even meaning to. Like, I feel like I have a pretty, I feel like I value money, you know, at least to the degree that, you know, before I spend a lot of money on something sort of ridiculous, I might ask myself something like, is this really worth it? Because, you know, this could buy somebody's, you know, college textbooks. Do I really want to just like throw this away on this thing? And sometimes the answer is yes, and that's my fucking prerogative, and I do it if I want, but most of the time I check it to some degree in that way so that money doesn't just become completely valueless to me, because in this world, money means a lot to a lot of people. And that's just one of the ways that I personally like to, you know, pay some respect to that. The fact that other people, this money would mean a lot more to them. So am I going to spend it on this or not? I don't know. That's just something that I do for myself. So I still have an awareness about money. Other people might not. That being said, I was going through one of the many baskets in my office that have a bunch of papers in them, and I found a bank envelope with I think $400 in it. And I was just like, this is where I'm at now. Like, I lost $400. God knows when. I don't even remember what this was from. How did this get in here? The bank envelope means that Jean got it for me for something. Maybe I got it for someone's birthday or something. I don't know. And just never thought of it again, and then found it in there. So beyond a certain point, like $400 isn't probably going to make a difference to you unless you're somebody that is counting every penny. And if that's not you, then I think it's probably safe to assume that you'll get to the point where a few $100s could go missing and you wouldn't notice. But again, it's like, it's what would it be like for you? So all of this whole video, 20 minutes, is basically to say there's no way to answer that question because it's so personal to each individual. There are rich people that count every penny. I guarantee it. And my dad wasn't a rich person, but you know, he had some cash, and you know, he was still living in kind of a shithole apartment, and he was still scrimping and saving at the grocery store. He would have, you know, he had like the generic condensed soups and stuff in his cabinets, and he just didn't spend money on stuff like that. But you know, he would go out and spend plenty of money on a night out, a nice restaurant, tip the hell out of the waitress. Everybody's getting drinks all night, you know. It's all about your values. So he didn't give a shit about the name brand condensed soup at the store, but he gave a shit about going out and having a good time with his family and friends. You have to figure out who you are. It's very, I think, helpful to think a lot about who you are a lot of the time, because when you know who you are, then you'll be able to take these scenarios, project them out into the future, and say, okay, I think this is how it would feel for me to have this thing. And then you have a bizarre moment where you can actually feel it as though it's already real. And that's the thing Neville Goddard is talking about. And that is what I think legions of people think they're doing, but they're actually not. They're thinking, what does my caricature of a rich person look like? And now I imagine myself doing that thing, those things. It's not you. It'll never be you. You don't have that moment of actually feeling like it's real, and therefore nothing happens. Nothing in you shifts. Nothing changes. Nothing is set in motion. There you have it. So yeah, I doubt this helped, other than maybe what I just said. But I think it's pretty unavoidable with this whole manifestation thing that you're going to have to do a lot of self-exploration. There's nothing and no one to change but self, as Neville himself said. I don't feel like anybody uses anybody other than Neville to try to justify some weird stuff. And Neville is right in line with everything else. All the other New Thought people, just, there's one truth here. Neville certainly adheres to it. Neville was also a human. Because he was human, that means he was certainly wrong about some of his interpretations of things. His works are not the written word of God. They're just a man, a mystic, somebody who got it and experienced it and talked about it, but a human, a fallible human, a human subject to misinterpreting things, a human who admitted in a Q&A on one of his lectures that he constantly has to keep himself in check, constantly monitor his own perceptions. That's where it ends up. It's a lifelong practice. And really the starting and ending point is you. So figure out who you are and try to imagine what you would be like in many different scenarios. Try to imagine how you would feel after the initial excitement wore off of any new thing that you could imagine that you would want. Imagine yourself after the point where it already happened, you already got excited about it, you already experienced that initial change, where you said, wow, is this really happening? Oh my God. Now imagine yourself after that point where it's just normal. What does that look like? What does it feel like? What are you doing? What are you thinking? You know, sit there and imagine yourself imagine yourself sitting there and getting used to it. And now what? It's still you. It's just you with more money. Imagine yourself going to the grocery store, and what are you doing? Are there things there that you wish you could buy now that you just don't buy because they're too expensive? Like, are you cheaping out on certain things? Are there certain like things you really like to eat that you don't eat because they're too expensive? Like, I remember back in the day being like telling Jean, God, if I could just afford to get sushi for lunch every day, oh my God. You know what's funny? So the sushi I liked was like $20, which in 2010 was kind of a lot for just like lunch every day. Now it's like everything is $20, but even so, I've been at the point where I could easily afford to get sushi for lunch every day for a decade probably. And now the sushi I like costs $40. I don't do it. I don't get sushi for lunch every day. It's just, I just don't, you don't actually want sushi for lunch every day, turns out. Once you have unlimited access to certain things, they lose their luster. So, when you put yourself in that scenario, what would you actually be doing? I don't know. Try to imagine it. I can't do it for you. So, yeah, it's just something to do with your spare time, and watch it change things. It's really amazing when you actually do this, especially when you don't hold on to it or try to force something to happen. You just experience it. I just made a video about how money like random money just kind of started coming at me after I spent a few minutes existing in how would I really feel if I had like tens of millions of dollars right now. Like, what would I actually do? That's an astronomical amount of money. I can barely attach to what that would feel like. I do know that it would mean basically the eradication of all of my current financial concerns, assuming it did not come about via inflation. If like it were today and I had this number, I went through all the things that I'm concerned about with money right now, or all the things that like I want, but I'm not doing because I don't feel it would be very prudent. I don't want the headache that would come along with it. Well, those headaches are pretty much all financial. So, or they can be solved with money. They can be solved by throwing money at the problem. So, pretty much every financial woe I have right now would be gone. That doesn't mean I would go out and do something wildly different than I would today. Maybe later, maybe after I got really comfortable with that number. I mean, not maybe, almost definitely. After I got comfortable with that number, something would change. But current me with that amount of money would do this. Current me with tens of millions of dollars would sell my current house and buy a different house that was bigger and better suited to my needs now that I have 2 animals also. But you know what? I would buy a house now even though I don't like the inflated values that I think are going to crash and come way down. That's a big reason why I'm not buying a house. So that I wouldn't care about. I would just say, okay, I don't care. If this house ends up being worth 30% less in 5 years, I really don't care, because the amount of money I would spend on a house, which would probably be, I don't know, maybe $800,000. If you have tens of millions of dollars, at least for me, spending $800,000 on a house and then losing 200 of it, who really cares? I mean, if you have tens of millions of dollars, losing 200K on something, at least for me, I would not allow myself to be upset over that because of the percentage of the overall wealth it represents. Not worth it. Not worth it. So I would definitely buy a house that's bigger and better than the one I currently have. I would definitely not worry about certain things I worry about with my business right now. I probably wouldn't dispose of my business immediately. I would keep probably working at it for a while. I've got employees that depend on it, full-time employees. I might try to figure out how to have one of them take over a lot more of it. I would probably, I don't know, like that's the thing. I wouldn't, if I had just imagined myself with tens of millions of dollars, I'm like, oh, well, I wouldn't work anymore. Yeah, but that's not really what I would actually do. I would actually continue to probably work for a little while, and over time that would change. But, that's what would happen in the scenario with that money. That's me right now with that money. So that's what I was thinking. That's where I was putting myself. And whether it's related or not, I don't know. But two, sums of money that most people would probably consider to be pretty nice just happened to show up like in the next couple days, or they popped right back in, and it's just like, what? And then I got another opportunity for something that will make a lot of money. It all happened right after that. I don't know. Is it related? Is it not? Who knows? You got to experiment with this stuff and see what happens. That's the fun of it. So that's my answer to that question. All I can really tell you is how I would react to a financial change. And hopefully something I said, I was able to be a parallel for something for you, or you were able to make a connection. That's why I'm doing this, because my experience will not be your experience with any of this stuff. And the way I view money is completely and totally to the level of fingerprint individuality for me and my life experience. And it won't be the same as anybody else. So you can't, I think, completely copy somebody else's mentality. Although honestly, copying some parts of people's mentality will get you far, for sure. That's it. I hope that helped. I hope that got your mind into the right place for imagining the things you want. Maybe a little tweak that you weren't thinking of will get you to actually feel the reality of a different outer world for yourself, or different financial status or whatever. And then once you feel that, it's hard to go back. So anyway, have a great day.